Discover how an amazing act of kindness transformed a black waitress's life in just 24 hours. Angela leaned against the cold brick wall of the diner, the cacophony of clattering dishes and raucous laughter fading slightly behind her. It had been one of those nights. Rude customers, unending orders, and the deafening weight of exhaustion clinging to her bones. She could feel the chill of the night air pierce her cheeks, but that was nothing compared to the warmth of knowing her daughter, Sophie, was safe at home, and that her mother had the medication she needed. Still, as the ghosts of her fatigue loomed large, a stirring urgency caught her off guard. While the rest of Hazelwood celebrated the small-town spirit of togetherness, Angela felt more isolated than ever, caught in a cruel loop of survival. The brief moment of solace shattered when she spotted him, a frail white man crumpled on the sidewalk. Her heart lurched. He looked too vulnerable, too broken. Could she pass by without helping? The answer formed in her chest like a steel beam. She rushed toward him, instinctively grasping his hand. Before she could think about the situation, she was already dialing 911, praying the ambulance would arrive soon. In the dark and cold, her worries faded, fleeting as she focused solely on the man before her, using every ounce of strength within to keep him conscious. Moments blurred until finally the paramedics arrived and swept him away like a broken doll. Yet, as they drove off, she was left shivering, her own world spinning around her dreams, each one quietly buried beneath layers of obligation. Would Mr. Harrington, as she later learned he was called, even remember her kindness? A pang of despair hit her. It's easy to slip into the background in a diner bustling with laughter and stories. The thought rang hollow in the depths of her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. When the phone rang the next day, her heart raced as she recognized the caller ID, Mr. Harrington. She felt a surge of warmth collide with icy disbelief as he praised her bravery. The words tumbled like stones. He intended to help her apply for nursing school, a light she had buried deep within. Nursing school? Her life as a waitress, battling the world's judgments, pressing hard against her, as if to say, know your place? Was she truly worthy of this chance to redefine her identity? Could she leave Sophie behind for a dream that felt intricately woven with guilt? Thoughts ricocheted in her mind, merciless and relentless. If she went, who would care for her mother? The burden of responsibility squeezed at her chest, while the flickering hope of a brighter future danced just out of reach. As the clock ticked away another hour, Angela was torn in two directions, the heavy path of love and duty against the beckoning call of a life less ordinary. Could a single act of kindness lead her from sacrificing her present to claiming her future? The answer was becoming ever more elusive, as was her soul's yearning for freedom from her past. With tension building like a storm inside her, Angela stood suspended at the precipice of decision, her life poised for transformation or stagnation. Would she dare to leap into the unknown, or remain anchored in the life she knew, weighed down by loyalty? Angela sank into the worn-out cushions of her sofa, the soft fabric cradling her as her mind swirled with hesitation. The faint sound of Sophie's laughter cascaded from her bedroom, a bittersweet reminder of what she stood to leave behind. Each giggle was a whisper from her heart, grounding her in the chaotic decision she faced. That phone call from Mr. Harrington replayed in her mind. "You can do this, Angela. I believe in you." But belief wasn't enough to silence the nagging worries, the haunting question echoing in her head. Did she have it in her to pursue a dream, a future that felt both thrilling and terrifying? Admitting her ambition brought forth an insistent wave of guilt for even contemplating a path that might lead her away from home. Her mother needed her, and Sophie's world relied heavily on Angela's stability. Anguish clenched around her chest, a tight noose constricting as she struggled to process the choices ahead. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the pungent aroma of coffee lingering from the diner. The memories of patrons and their stories danced beneath her eyelids, stirring her desire for more, yet weighing her down. With an urgency she hadn't felt since that night on the sidewalk, Angela reached for the notebook she kept beside the sofa. She opened it to the first blank page, her fingers trembling over the pen. What if she could marry her responsibilities with her aspirations? Her pulse quickened as she listed the possibilities. She could find evening classes. She could enlist her mother in a home care service that allowed her a few hours of freedom. And Sophie, her precious daughter, would learn about perseverance and ambition through her mother's example. As the ink flowed, her heart began to lighten. The weight of self-doubt slipped as she sketched a plan, a fragile but bright thread leading her towards her nursing school dream. Each point she wrote down felt like a commitment, a promise she made not just to herself, but to the little girl who looked up to her every day. The question still lingered, though, would she have the strength to turn this plan into action? Suddenly, the realization struck her. A tool she hadn't accessed before might lie buried within. During her shifts, her interactions with customers had honed her instincts. She had developed a natural empathy that made her relatable to every table she served. Her experiences with the elderly customers, soothing their worries and caring for their needs, stretched far beyond typical waitressing duties. Every moment spent connecting with the people around her hinted at her potential to thrive in a nursing role. The pen stopped its flowing motion as the door creaked open. Sophie peeked her head in, her eyes sparkling with innocence and curiosity. "Mommy, are you writing another story?" Angela's heart softened at the sight of her daughter, warm affection enveloping her. "Not quite a story, sweetheart, just a plan." Sophie hopped onto the couch, nestling against her. The two of them, bound by more than blood, were connected in this delicate dance of dreams and sacrifices. Angela wrapped her arms around the girl, who reminded her of how far she had come and how far she had yet to go. As the evening settled, a resolve began to solidify within her. The path wasn't clear, and the obstacles were daunting, yet the potential of fulfillment beckoned her, a voice growing louder with every nod of affirmation she gave herself. But before she could settle into that certainty, a jarring thought interrupted her. What would Mr. Harrington expect from her next? Would he measure her commitment by the speed with which she applied, or by the actions she took? It felt like standing at the edge of a steep cliff, with the swirling waters of doubt crashing below her. The moment of decision loomed just beyond the horizon, and with it, the tantalizing possibility of change. But was she ready to answer the call? The weight of inevitability loomed heavy, as did the question of whether she would stand firm at the cliff's edge or take that first step into the unknown. Angela held her breath, teetering on the precipice of something extraordinary. What awaited her on the other side, she wondered, as possibilities unfurled like an uncharted map, and the horizon glimmered with uncertainty. The next morning, a renewed resolve coursed through Angela like caffeine surging through her bloodstream. She rose with the sun, the amber light spilling across the kitchen table, illuminating her notebook. The list she created echoed in her mind. Opportunities mingled with responsibilities. The ideal balance awaited her efforts. She fixed breakfast for Sophie, channeling her determination into nurturing the day ahead. Sophie's chatter filled the small kitchen as Angela listened intently, her daughter's innocent dreams bursting forth with each bite of toast. In that moment, a powerful clarity emerged. Angela could no longer view her ambitions as a separate entity. Instead, she needed to intertwine her family's needs with her aspirations. Once breakfast was cleared, she gathered her mother's care plan and committed to call local services that day. Advocating for her mother wasn't just a task, it was a critical stepping stone in her journey. The diner loomed before her like a second home as Angela arrived for her shift. A weighty tension tightened her throat, but today was different. Today, Angela was ready to own her narrative. She embraced the clientele with a newfound vigor, treating the interactions as more than mere transactions. Each smile exchanged felt like a testament to the growth within her. As the lunch rush swelled, she spotted Mr. Harrington seated at a corner booth. His presence resonated like a lighthouse, guiding her through uncharted waters. Could she confront the boundless potential she felt? She approached him, heart racing, and asked if he had a moment. "I'm thinking about pursuing nursing," she confessed, her voice steady yet vulnerable. His eyes lit up, surprise mingling with warmth. "That's fantastic, Angela. You'd be remarkable in that field. Have you set any plans in motion?" Angela felt her heartbeat drum louder in her ears as she unveiled her tentative roadmap. Each word breathed life into the plan she crafted the night before. She spoke of evening classes, her mother's care, and the message of perseverance she wanted to convey to Sophie. Mr. Harrington nodded, his expression a blend of encouragement and pragmatism. "Remember, the first step is often the hardest, but it's the stepping stones that lead to transformation. Don't doubt your instincts." A tight knot of fear twisted in her gut. What if she faltered? What if her dreams fell flat? Yet Mr. Harrington's belief in her buzzed in the air, a magnetic force challenging her to lean into her fear instead of retreating. The shift continued, but Angela felt the hours weighed differently, each moment a brushstroke painting her path. Embracing this newfound determination, she seized on small acts of kindness, checking on an elderly patron, making jokes with a regular, lending an ear to a coworker's struggles. Her empathy felt powerful, transforming her perspective as she realized that her interactions were not just about being a waitress, but about nurturing connections, something vital for her future career. As the sun dipped on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the diner, Angela left with her weekly paycheck in hand, but wealth of experience in her heart. Later that evening, as she sat beside Sophie reading a book, the thought of nursing school surged back into her mind, amplified by her earlier conversations. She recalled Mr. Harrington's words, and her pulse raced with purpose. She couldn't just dream about nursing, she now had to plan for it, and soon the first part of her journey would begin, taking the plunge into those evening classes. A wave of excitement surged through her, but alongside it emerged fears. What if she wouldn't manage her time? What if her mother's condition worsened? Sophie looked up from her book, her small hand clutching Angela's. "Mommy, are you okay?" Angela hesitated. "Just thinking about tomorrow." "Can we go on an adventure?" Sophie beamed, pulling Angela from the grasp of her doubts. Angela smiled. "An adventure, huh? Yes, I think we can." Yet, as they began making plans, a prickling sensation ran down Angela's spine, reminding her that each decision, each adventure she took, laid stones on a road she had to construct herself. The unknown lay wider than it had moments ago. How could she embrace the looming challenges while nurturing her daughter's dreams? What would the first day of school feel like? With her heart racing from both excitement and anxiety, Angela put the plans for classes aside for the moment as a deeper realization hit her. The journey was about sharing what it meant to be both a mother and a nurse, and she desperately hoped she wouldn't lose herself in the process. The evening settled in, and with it her resolve barely masked the tightening swirl of uncertainty. A rush of questions echoed within. What would the first class demand of her? Would it be a new beginning or a harsh reminder of old fears? The thought compelled her. Tomorrow could change everything. The night enveloped Angela's thoughts in restless waves. She tossed and turned, grappling with an anxiety that felt all too familiar. Each question haunting her, the workload, her mother's health, being a dedicated mother to Sophie, swirled in her mind like leaves caught in a tempest. At the edges of her senses, she could hear Sophie's gentle breathing, an anchor amid her internal chaos. Morning arrived. The sun broke through her window, illuminating her resolve, or what remained of it. As she sat at the kitchen table, the quiet of the morning was a stark contrast to her racing thoughts. Today was the day she would take the first step toward her dream. She grabbed a pen and jotted down a mantra she needed to remember. Embrace what is uncertain. With each word, the trembling in her hands calmed slightly. She prepared breakfast, layers of syrup and butter carefully applied to the pancakes, reflecting her wish for Sophie to savor every moment. Facing the day, Angela chose to embrace the chaos instead of fearing it. During breakfast, Sophie innocently asked, "Mommy, what's nursing?" Angela paused, her heart swelling with pride and fear. How did she explain a future built on dedication and compassion to a child whose world was painted in simple joys? "It's kind of like," she began, searching for the right words, "helping people feel better, making them healthy when they're not." Sophie's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "Like a superhero?" Angela chuckled, the sound breaking through her tension. "Yes, exactly, a superhero for health." After breakfast, the tension began creeping back, aware of the reality that awaited her. Standing outside the community center where the evening classes would be held, she felt small and vulnerable. The building appeared imposing, its facade whispering reminders of her insecurities. Retroactively, all her what-ifs began to infiltrate her mind again. What if she couldn't keep up? If others were better than her? With a deep breath, she stepped through the doors. The room steadily filled with students from a mix of backgrounds, laughter and chatter filling the air. Finding her place in this world felt monumental. Would they welcome her, or would she feel like an imposter? As the instructor walked in, a calm swept through the room, settling the energy. He introduced himself, his voice steady and reassuring, and Angela instantly recognized the authority and warmth in his demeanor. Professor LaRue was a veteran nurse who transitioned into education, using his experience to shape future practitioners. His commitment to teaching resonated with her aspirations, igniting a flicker of hope. By the end of the first class, Angela found herself exhausted yet exhilarated. The material was challenging, richer than she imagined. It fueled her fire instead of extinguishing it. Each concept made her realize the magnitude of the journey ahead, not just the content, but the compassionate service she would ultimately perform. Remembering her mother's care plan, she felt a surge of clarity. Maybe nursing wasn't just about treating patients, it was about understanding their stories, their battles. In learning to care for others, she would solidify her own identity. After class, as Angela lingered to speak with Professor LaRue, the weight of her anxiety had eased. He listened patiently as she shared her aspirations, while also noting her struggles as a single mother. "Angela," he said, his tone steady, "it takes courage to pursue a dream while balancing family responsibilities. Use that energy. It's powerful. You're already exhibiting qualities that will make you an exceptional nurse." His words rang in her ears, powerful validation that helped silence the nagging voice of inadequacy. Yet as she walked to her car, a new doubt crept in. With newfound enthusiasm, could she emotionally shoulder the weight of everything she was trying to build? As the dusk settled around her, she clutched Sophie's hand tightly, a grounding reminder of why she was pursuing her dream in the first place. Every day she'd spent pouring into her daughter unveiled deeper motivations, coupled with a fierce desire to model resilience and love. But lurking in the shadows was the realization that the path ahead held complexity. Would she manage the emotional demands of nursing in tandem with motherhood? Was it possible to weave both roles into a cohesive identity? Moments later, as they entered their home, a knock at the door sparked her resolve again. The evening held secrets she wasn't prepared for, but she had stepped into the arena. All she had to do was face them. What awaited her beyond the threshold? The knock at the door resonated through the quiet of the evening, dispelling the previous thoughts that had accumulated like dust. Angela hesitated, her heart quickening as she stood frozen in the doorway, torn between curiosity and trepidation. With a deep breath, she opened the door, revealing a stranger, a woman holding a neatly packed meal delivery bag. "Hi, I'm with the Community Meal Share Program," the woman said, her smile brightening her face. "We provide meals for families in need. I hope this helps you and your daughter." For a moment, Angela was caught off guard, her mind racing with unexpected gratitude. "Oh, thank you. We're okay, really." She stumbled over her words, caught between pride and humility. The woman's smile widened, and she stepped forward slightly, placing the bag in Angela's hands. You'd be surprised how much a little kindness can mean. Sometimes we all need a bit of help, right? Angela felt a mixture of warmth and the familiar flutter of anxiety. Accepting help had never been easy. She had always been the giver, the caretaker, the strong one. They spent a few moments exchanging pleasantries, but as the door closed behind the woman, Angela grappling with the weight of the meal bag, she realized something profound had shifted within her. That meal, that small act of kindness, was not simply food. It mirrored the very essence of what she was stepping into: nursing, compassion, and the recognition that vulnerability could be a shared experience. The realization tied into her recent resolve to embrace uncertainty, igniting a new question in her mind. Could she also seek out help rather than face every challenge alone? With Sophie asleep in her room, Angela sat alone at the kitchen table, the meal bag resting beside her. She opened it and found an assortment of comforting dishes: a warm casserole, fresh bread, and even a small dessert. Each bite felt like a hug from the world, wrapping around her spirit, whispering that she wasn't alone as she had thought. As she ate, her mind wandered back to Professor LaRue's words. His encouragement flashed through her thoughts, rekindling that flicker of hope. She pushed aside her fears of inadequacy and began to strategize. Perhaps the course load wouldn't be easy, but she could seek out her peers for support, share her challenges, and open herself to collaborative learning. The thought was revolutionary for Angela. She could establish a support network, fellow students who could carry the load with her. But even more importantly, she realized that just as the woman had reached out to her, she too could extend her hand to others. This reciprocal flow of support might ease the unmanageable weight of her ambitions and responsibilities. In the shadow of her dreams was the promise of deeper human connection, but it would require letting down her guard. She knew her capacity for care would extend beyond patients. It could also bond her with fellow nursing students. And perhaps, in this, she might find the strength to navigate her multifaceted life. Emerging from this epiphany, Angela felt invigorated and alive. But that sense of revitalization collided with the stark reality of the challenges ahead. With a newfound commitment to openness, the fear of the unknown still loomed. Could she truly balance her identity as a nurturing mother and an aspiring nurse? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. She was at the edge of her journey, and if she was going to confront her own barriers, she needed to take immediate action. Stepping forward boldly, she decided to seek out her classmates in the next session, ready to become part of a community that could share both struggles and successes. However, as she leaned into her aspirations, an unsettling feeling nagged at her, a fear of how far she was willing to go, not just for herself, but for Sophie. In the back of her mind, one dialogue replayed. What if this journey took her away from her daughter instead of bringing them closer? With fresh resolve anchoring her spirit, Angela prepared to face the next class as a participant, not an outsider. Yet that thought lingered, pressing her to confront not only her path, but also the emotional toll it could exact. As she arranged her notes for the next day, another knock at the door rattled her focus. Could that be another unexpected twist in her story? What if the next visitor brought a challenge that tested everything she thought she understood about her limits? Angela's hand faltered just inches from the doorknob. The shadow of her last visitor loomed in her mind, igniting a cautious curiosity as she hesitated. What if this new visitor could either tip the scales in her favor or plunge her deeper into uncertainty? Risk swirled in her chest, stirring her apprehension as she finally opened the door. Before her stood a young woman, her face drawn with urgency. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, her voice steadied but tinged with desperation. "My name is Rachel. I live down the street. I've been in a really tough spot lately." Angela felt a seed of empathy germinate in her heart. Something about Rachel's eyes, the flicker of fear and determination, spoke of shared struggles. "Come in," she offered, pulling the door wider to let her in. Rachel stepped inside and quickly glanced around, taking in the modest home, the comforting detritus of family life. The tension hung in the air between them, as palpable as the autumn chill outside. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I really need someone to talk to." As the door clicked shut, Angela felt the weight of her own fears mingle with her desire to connect. "What's going on?" she asked, settling onto the edge of the kitchen chair, willing herself to listen fully. Rachel took a deep breath, crossing her arms tightly. "I lost my job last month, and things are getting really hard. I keep thinking about what you did for that woman at the meal share. Well, I could really use a little kindness myself." Angela's heart constricted. Here was a woman who needed support in a way that mirrored her struggles, yet the question of vulnerability loomed heavily. Could she reach out again, this time to another who was hurting? Or was there an unspoken limit to her capacity? Help? But in the silence, the casserole from earlier echoed in her mind, the warmth she had felt when accepting help. Who was she to shy away from extending a hand? Angela nodded, her own voice barely above a whisper. "How can I help?" Tears glimmered in Rachel's eyes, and for a moment they shared the weight of their burdens. "I'm scared about losing my apartment. I don't have anyone to turn to, and I'm out of options." Angela's instinct was to problem solve. She quickly thought of local resources, job listings, and the community networks she had been hesitant to embrace for herself. Here was an opportunity to not only recognize her fears, but make a decisive action from them. "Maybe I can help you look for jobs or connect you with local resources. You're not alone in this." A small flicker of hope ignited in Rachel's eyes as she nodded slowly. They started to exchange ideas, turning uncertainty into a plan, mapping out possible solutions together. The act of collaboration felt like a necessary lifeline. As they conversed, Angela felt another layer peel back. The more she shared, the more she realized her own resources, her emotional resilience, the connections she had cultivated, and her drive. It became clear that both women could face their struggles if they leaned on each other. This connection was more profound than either had anticipated. But as the evening wore on, a gnawing doubt crept back into Angela's mind. Was she ready to open up about her own vulnerabilities while grappling with her burgeoning nursing goals and Sophie's needs? This wasn't merely about aiding another. It was about defining her own identity in the process. Rachel reached out, placing a gentle hand on Angela's forearm. "Thank you. Just knowing someone cares makes it feel less hopeless." Angela stared at her, an unexpected wave of uncertainty crashing over her again. Was she truly forging a partnership, or could this involvement jeopardize her ability to care for Sophie? The inner conflict simmered just below the surface as Rachel's gratitude washed over her. The warmth reawakened her aspirations, but with it, the chill of potential sacrifice loomed like a storm cloud. Angela's heart raced. A personal dilemma had begun to unfurl. This new relationship could illuminate the path forward or cast shadows over her choices. As she contemplated her next steps, the door creaked as another knock resonated through the room. The tremor of foreboding pulsed through her. Who could it be now? And what further complication awaited her? Could she really afford to face yet another challenge? Angela hesitated as she glanced at Rachel, whose expression mirrored her trepidation. The knock had been unexpected, and in her gut she sensed it could bring more turmoil. "Do you want me to get that?" Rachel suggested, the urgency in her voice breaking through Angela's moment of indecision. "Maybe it's a delivery or someone else needing help," Angela replied cautiously, but the truth was she wasn't ready to face whatever lay on the other side of the door. With a shuffling step, she approached and pulled it open. Standing in the doorway was a middle-aged man in a dark jacket, his demeanor both intimidating and strangely sympathetic. "I'm looking for Angela," he stated, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "That's me," she managed, her throat tightening. "I'm Mark. Your daughter's school called me. I came to discuss Sophie's recent behavior." Sophie's struggles at school had been a constant weight on Angela's mind, and meeting with someone she didn't know felt overwhelming. "What about her?" she asked, her breath caught somewhere between disbelief and fear. "It's better to discuss this inside," he suggested, glancing at Rachel with a seasoned perceptiveness, as if gauging the emotional landscape of the room. Against her better judgment, Angela stepped back, allowing him entry while urging Rachel to take a seat. As Mark settled in, his serious gaze met hers directly. "Sophie's been acting out. She's bright, but something isn't right," he stated plainly, his words slicing through the warmth of shared hope already budding between Angela and Rachel. "Scaring other kids," he continued, "disrupting classes. I know it's tough being a single parent." The comparison to her struggles with Rachel felt like a heavy weight pressing down on her. She could sense the walls closing in, amplifying her internal conflict. Was she failing Sophie? The idea of her daughter resembling the very chaos they were trying to navigate together sent ripples of anxiety coursing through her thoughts. Angela felt her heart race as she battled this new reality. "We've been trying to manage our situation," Angela replied defensively. "It's not easy for either of us." "I get that," Mark conceded, his tone softening slightly. "But she needs support, and so do you. Have you considered counseling or support groups?" Angela turned to Rachel for a moment, seeking an anchor. Rachel's eyes, filled with understanding, reminded her of the kindness they had been exchanging. Maybe this conversation didn't have to drown her. Maybe it was another opportunity for connection. "I've thought about it," Angela admitted, the admission hollowed by doubt. "But it's been hard to prioritize, especially with my work and not wanting to expose all her vulnerabilities," she trailed off. "What about finding someone to help?" Rachel interjected, her voice steadying the turbulence in the room. "If you help others, you deserve help too, Angela." Mark nodded, as though processing a shift in the atmosphere. "Support looks different for everyone. Seeking help can make a difference. It's not admitting defeat, it's about moving forward." Angela felt exposed, the weight of pain suddenly surfacing in this vulnerable moment. The sense of fear was daunting, yet profound clarity began to dawn. Could seeking assistance be a crucial step toward redefining her identity? What might happen if she took this leap of faith? Was she ready to incorporate counseling not just for herself, but for Sophie? A heavy burden lifted slightly as she considered this possibility, pairing her compassion for Rachel with self-care. "Maybe I should explore these options," Angela finally admitted, her voice firmer now. "For both of us." Rachel smiled, hope sparking again. Another knock reverberated through the air, and Angela exchanged alarmed glances with Mark and Rachel. The answer to her rising trepidation loomed like a specter. What could this newcomer bring? Would it lead her closer to finding the help she so desperately needed, or would it cast her and Rachel into deeper disarray? With determined resolve, she moved to open the door once more. Angela opened the door, her heart racing. She braced herself for whatever awaited her, but what stood before her was a young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, with a vibrant smile. She held a takeout bag in her hand, the aroma wafting tantalizingly into the room. "Hi there. I hope I'm not interrupting. I'm Jessie from next door. I thought I'd drop off some dinner. I heard Sophie's been having a tough time at school," she said, her tone warm and inviting. Surprised by this seemingly random act of kindness, Angela felt a rush of emotions. She momentarily forgot the weight pressing down on her, Sophie's struggles, the meeting with Mark, and her own wavering sense of self. This simple, unexpected gesture brought a touch of solace in an otherwise chaotic day. "Thank you, that's really sweet of you," Angela replied, her voice softer. She motioned for Jessie to come inside, grateful for the distraction. Rachel shot her a reassuring smile, silently encouraging Angela to accept this small gift. As Jessie settled into the living room, the atmosphere lightened. They engaged in light conversation, and Angela felt herself relaxing. Jessie radiated positivity, drawing them into her orbit. She spoke of her job at a local cafe and her aspirations to start a nonprofit that helps young people in trouble. Each word seemed to echo with possibility, a stark contrast to Angela's growing anxiety. "I believe in the power of community," Jessie stated, her eyes gleaming with passion. "Sometimes all it takes is one person to reach out and make a difference." Angela's mind drifted to the idea of reaching out for help, just as Jessie had. This girl was living proof that connection spawned hope. Could she find something similar for herself and Sophie? Her thoughts, once tangled in chaos, began to weave into something more structured. "So what do you do for fun?" Jessie asked, her curiosity genuine. For the first time in a while, Angela felt prompted to consider her own interests beyond motherhood and work. The simplicity of Jessie's question nudged open a door Angela had long since forgotten, the one where she could explore parts of herself that weren't solely defined by her role as a parent or caretaker. "I used to paint," Angela found herself admitting, an unexpected wave of nostalgia sweeping over her. "But it's been years since I picked up a brush." "Why not start again?" Jessie encouraged. The suggestion doused Angela in a rush of excitement and trepidation. "I don't know. It feels impractical." "Impractical?" Jessie laughed lightly. "Art is what keeps us sane. Dive back in. You deserve something just for you." Mark, who had taken a seat, quietly observing this exchange, leaned in slightly. "You could join an art class. Making time for yourself doesn't mean abandoning your responsibilities. It can be a step toward healing, too." Angela considered their words. Painting could be that small act of self-care, a potential diving board into the deeper waters of her identity and emotional wellness. But the fear of failure lingered in the back of her mind like a specter. Sophie's name flickered back into her thoughts. Would painting pull her away from supporting her daughter? Or could it serve as a bridge, helping her understand herself better, ultimately supporting Sophie through her challenges? Rachel, noticing Angela's pensive expression, nudged her gently. "Maybe it's time for you to take a leap, Angela. We're all rooting for you." With a deep breath, Angela realized this wasn't just about painting. It was about redefining priorities, believing in herself, and seeking help when needed. She felt the urge to break free from routines that suffocated her spirit. As the conversation with Jessie and Mark continued, Angela pondered what lay ahead. What if she took them up on their advice? The echo of Jessie's warm smile resonated within her. "Okay," she said finally, her voice holding a newfound conviction. "I'm going to look into that art class." Just then, the phone rang, jarring the hopeful atmosphere. Angela's hand trembled slightly as she reached for it, a wave of apprehension washing over her once more. Was this call going to reinforce her determination or plunge her back into darkness? The answer lay at her fingertips, and the weight of anticipation enveloped her. Angela hesitated, the phone vibrating against her palm like a heartbeat, a reminder of the unpredictability ahead. With a deep breath, she finally picked up, a surge of determination mingling with doubt. Princess Bridge School. It was Sophie's school. Her mind whirled. Had they called about Sophie's grades again? Or perhaps a meeting she hadn't prepared for? "Hello?" she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. "Hi, Angela. It's Miss Collins. I hope I'm not interrupting." The voice on the line was sincere but firm. "I wanted to discuss Sophie's recent performance. She's been struggling in class." Something squeezed within Angela, a mix of fear and frustration. "I know, we're working on it," she replied, a touch of defensiveness creeping in. "I understand, but I believe we should consider some additional support," Miss Collins continued. "Have you thought about arranging tutoring? It might help her feel more confident before the next assessment." As the conversation unfolded, Angela felt herself absorbing the information like a sponge. She realized that, just as Jessie had developed a plan to help others, she needed to be the champion for Sophie, in a way that opened not just doors to academic improvement, but also to emotional resilience. "Absolutely. Thank you for bringing this to my attention," Angela said, forcing calmness into her voice. She jotted down notes, establishing a plan. The crux of it all was to not only improve Sophie's grades, but to rekindle a sense of self-worth in her daughter. It was a fragile balance, and here she was, trying her best to stay afloat while being a guiding force. But Mrs. Collins's voice rekindled the urgency within her, a push to become proactive once again. After the call ended, Angela set the phone aside, her heart still racing. That initial whirlwind of anxiety started to dissipate as a new urgency replaced it. She sensed an inner shift, the kind that had previously felt daunting, now tinged with empowerment. The discussions with Jessie and Mark echoed within her once more. She wanted to pursue painting, but she also wanted to prioritize Sophie's education. A deliberate dual approach was emerging, one that could connect her personal well-being with her daughter's growth. With purpose, Angela grabbed her laptop and searched for art classes in the area. The act was exhilarating. As she scrolled through options, images of vibrant canvases flashed before her. Each picture resonated as a possibility. The fear of failure faded slightly, replaced by the allure of exploration. What else could she achieve if she stepped outside of her comfort zone? Could art be her sanctuary, a vehicle for both personal fulfillment and healing for Sophie? The connection between their journeys began to form a delicate, hopeful tapestry in her mind. Deciding now wasn't the time to hesitate, she clicked on a beginner's painting class and filled out the form. Every click of the mouse solidified her commitment, a promise to herself. She would not just build walls around her emotions anymore. Instead, she would begin crafting an expansive, colorful canvas. Just as she was about to finalize her registration, the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected in the silence of her focused solitude. A pulse of anticipation coursed through her veins. Who could it be now? Another opportunity? Or perhaps it was going to challenge her newfound resolve? Holding her breath, Angela approached the door, hesitant but resolute. The changes she had initiated countered the fears dragging her down. Peering through the peephole, she couldn't help but wonder, what awaited on the other side? Opening the door, Angela was greeted by the beaming face of a neighbor she recognized from down the street, Mrs. Thompson. Clutching a small bundle of colorful yarn and a crochet hook, she smiled warmly. "Hi, Angela. I heard you might want to join our new crafting group. We meet every Thursday and make all sorts of things. I thought you might enjoy it." Angela felt a swell of surprise and gratitude. Until that moment, she had been focused solely on her ambitions and challenges, almost forgetting the power of community. "Oh, wow, that sounds wonderful," Angela replied, her heart fluttering at the thought of creating something tangible and beautiful again. "Why don't you come this Thursday? It'll be fun, and it might just give you that little escape you need from the day-to-day grind," Mrs. Thompson encouraged. Standing at the threshold, Angela felt a surge of exhilaration wash over her. Here was another opportunity to not only broaden her skill set, but also nurture her creativity, a necessary counterpart to the diligent focus on her nursing goals and her responsibilities as a mother. "Yes, I'd love to," Angela confirmed, the words escaping her almost before she could second-guess herself. There was something liberating in her spontaneity. A moment of clarity emerged, illuminating the path ahead with vibrant colors. That single conversation sparked a desire to embrace more than just motherhood and professional aspirations. It urged her to embrace joy and connection, too. The following days surged onward with new motivation and remarkable energy. As Thursday approached, Angela busied herself, gathering supplies she hadn't used in years, paints, brushes, and now yarn. Each item signified an acceptance of the layered dimensions of her life. She could be nurturing, ambitious, and creatively fulfilled. When the crafting night arrived, Angela entered Mrs. Thompson's living room, where laughter and chatter danced on the air. Surrounding her were women of all ages, deep in conversation as they crafted unique projects that mirrored their personalities. As Angela picked up a crochet hook for the first time, uncertainties emerged, but so did determination. Don't worry about mistakes. Just create. That's what matters, Mrs. Thompson reassured her, draping an arm around her shoulder, echoing the sentiment of shared experience. Hours melted away as Angela found her rhythm. She knitted stitches, surrounding herself with conversations about life's ups and downs, ambitions and loves. Each word, each connection fostered a sense of belonging. For the first time in years, she felt like a part of something bigger than herself, a community that embraced both their battles and triumphs. By the time she returned home, a sense of fulfillment enveloped Angela. She didn't just respect the connections she was building, she cherished them. Stepping back into her home, she spotted Sophie coloring quietly at the kitchen table, a smile spreading on her face. "How was your day, Mommy?" Sophie asked innocently, setting down her crayons. "It was amazing, sweet girl. I started crafting," Angela exclaimed, her excitement palpable. She described the evening. "I met some wonderful women, and we all shared ideas." Sophie's face lit up. "That sounds like fun. Can I join you next time?" Angela's heart swelled, recognizing that through embracing her own needs, she could inspire Sophie to explore her own creativity too. "Absolutely. We can make it an us thing." In the weeks that followed, Angela delved into her nursing courses, navigating the courses with a blend of determination and joy. She found herself more engaged than before, driven by the support she had nurtured through community craft nights and her renewed commitment to Sophie. Every piece she created reminded her of the importance of balance, of weaving creativity into her ambition.